let's get into this. Nick, what you got for us today?
What I have for us today... Fuck. Wait, how do I want to start this?
You said you had it written down.
I did. I fucked it up already. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Scuff. All right. So, hi, welcome to the second episode of the Dungeons and Dubbys podcast. I'm leading the charge this week. I'm Nick, and I kind of suck sometimes.
Yeah, most of the time.
I love that you called it Dungeons and Dubbys.
Dubbys and Dragons, whatever, man.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Yeah,
to be fair.
Dubbys and Dragons doesn't sound as sexual as Dungeons and Dubbys. That sounds like you picked up Teletubby characters and put them in a fucking torture dungeon.
Bro, have you tried the Dubby Dilly? Coming soon to the merch store.
All right, let's take one more.
Take it from the top.
All right, hot take.
You
Let's
got
go.
this.
I hope you know that this is all staying in the podcast.
I hate it. I don't want it.
Fuck yeah.
Anyways, hi, welcome to the second episode of the Dubbys and Dragons podcast. Leading the charge and hosting this week is me, your boy Nick. And tonight we have myself and...
Hi, I'm Dale and Cadis.
My name is Keanu, but people call me Boozybumbler.
Bunny, okay, Nick in charge. Yeah, trust me, we all know it's going to be a little scuff tonight.
A little bit of a train wreck, but it's fine.
Scuff. My life is a train wreck, so I'm used to it. All right. So last week we talked about just intro into Dungeons and Dragons. We had a little bit of light conversation, a few stories, and we're really just talking about the nuts and bolts of how we got in, finding a group, and just some of the nuances when it comes to making those decisions and getting into stuff. And we also drank copious amounts of alcohol while talking about it, which we will be continuing as a trend. So for this episode, we all have individual drinks, but moving forward, we're going to roll... we're going to roll a percentile die, and we're going to find a drink out of the Dungeons & Dragons official drink book of alcoholic beverages. So we'll be talking about that more at the end, but that will be happening. Keanu, what are you drinking tonight?
I actually pulled a recipe from the Dungeon Meister's D&D cook or drink book today. I am drinking the Sweet and Sorcerer, or Sweet and Sour. It has some sweet and sour mix. It's some cherry liqueur and some white rum with some lime in it. So this just straight up tastes like a cherry lemonade, or a little bit of like a cherry limeade kind of thing. But you know, it's gonna fuck me up.
And Dale, what are you drinking tonight?
I got this beautiful thing. It is called the Follow the Green Dragon, and it is some Midori and some blue curacao, and that's really it. That a little bit of like 7-Up or Sprite on top of it.
Nice.
So it's gonna do its job.
Fuck, I hope so. And looks like I'm drinking a Hammerhead Ale, courtesy of McMenamins.
Hell yeah.
All right. So, now that we have the formalities out of the way, let's get into the nuts and the bolts tonight, guys. Character creation. The most fun you'll have before you even start D&D is coming up with that thing you're going to You're going to role play.
I have a little bit of an anecdote here for this. So most of you guys, if you're familiar with my channel, or you're kind of in our friend group, you guys know who Cece is. She has, I don't think she's ever played, or maybe she's only ever played once, but she just has like made characters, because the making characters part is the most fun to her. Like she has a lot of fun just like thinking up of characters and like creating wacky backstories and stuff for them, which is pretty cool.
Cece did in fact play with us. She played it in a one-shot that I ran back in Browntown.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's why it sounded familiar. Like I couldn't
First off,
remember.
It's still Senderp, which is just gnomish for Browntown, but it's Senderp nonetheless.
Browntown.
Yeah, it's still Browntown.
You fucks. Anyways, boys, Dale, and I'm going to
Yes.
start off with you with this first opening question to get us rolling. How do you get an idea for a character? Is there anything that you get that's special, unique, or do you just kind of just sit down, look at a sheet, roll some dice, and say "fuck it"? Or do things come to you?
Well, originally, are we talking about when I first started? Or are we talking about right now how I do it?
Whenever.
Okay, well, I'll do both. When I first started, I had ideas for, I stuck, like, my first character was a rogue, and everybody who listened to the podcast last week knows that my first character was a rogue. But I just thought rogues were so cool. I love the ninja aspect. I love the assassin aspect. And so I just rolled with that. And it was like, basically, man, I was like a little 16-year-old kid or 15-year-old kid, and I was just trying to be as edgy as fuck because I was already edgy as fuck, like IRL. But as things progressed, and where I get now is, basically, I just, it's going to sound horrible, but it's the complete truth. I just basically don't like being myself. So I find any fucking reason to not have to be myself and my characters. So everything that I want to be in real life, you can find in my characters, and that's where I start. So I start with a backstory, like a good backstory that is interesting, and I move on from there.
Is that why you never pick a rogue, because it's already too edgy?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like 90% of my day is just me edging all the time, just constantly on that verge, and so that's why I don't play an edgy character any longer. So
Sweet baby rays. Keanu, how about you?
All right. I choose kind of a little bit of a different approach. What I do first is I look at all of the classes, and I'm like, which one haven't I played in a while? Or which one haven't I played a character like this in a while? And so, I mean, honestly, that's why I chose Warlock for Bulby, because I played a Cleric and then a Paladin. I was like, all right, I'm getting away from this kind of character. Let's try something else. So I look and I try to find kind of like something new, something fresh. I kind of come up with an idea for like class and race, and then I start working on the backstory, and then kind of go from there. So
So it's more important that you change it up rather than jumping in and just playing kind of something similar each time.
right.
Okay.
what about you, Nick? How do you choose what character you're going to play and when you're going to play that character?
So I'll do kind of a format of Dale's. When I first started, I was like, wizard! I want to cast spells! Like, and that's kind of what all of it was. Is my first character when I played with Keanu was an elven wizard, and he was awful. I had no idea what I was doing, and ironically enough, I was the only one who didn't die, and our party got wiped. And I was dragging them back because our horse got killed to town with a cart. With the -2 stat wizard. It was pretty gangster. So for me, then it was about, I want to be a spellcaster. I want to be some form of a spellcaster. That's all. I was horse blinders. I was tunnel visioned. I'm doing that. Now, I cater more to the group when I come up with the character. And something that Keanu was talking about actually leads into our next question. The next question I had to ask you guys tonight was, I catered to the group, so I based everything on the class first, and then it trickled down from there. But that is actually the next question: is where do you guys like to start? And I think Keanu answered a little bit. Maybe he can go a little bit more in depth. You guys start with class, background, stats, or a backstory, and what do you think is the most important, and what do you think is the least important?
Who would you like to go first, B?
No, I figure Keanu can go since he already kind of gave us a little bit of his answer.
So the way that I kind of approach things is I do first I do class, and then I decide race, and then I do backstory, and then I do stats, right? In my opinion, for me at least, the class is the most important because it kind of sets the tone for how I'm going to play this character. I think backstory is probably like the second most important thing, but I think it kind of, not always, but it can kind of play off of what race you choose, which is why I do it after the race. I think stats, in my opinion, is probably like the least important, unless like it's specifically going to cater to something in your backstory. So if you're playing somebody who's like, who just recently woke up from a coma or something, you don't want him to be this like super, wisdom high, super smart boy because he's been, he's been incapacitated for however long. Like just stuff like that.
Looking at you, Walking Dead.
Yeah, right. I think I think that in my opinion, just in my opinion, the class is the most important, and then I would say stats are probably the least.
Okay. Dale.
I do things a little weird, and this is a little unconventional for most people that I have talked to about this. But this is great. I just want to say this is first and foremost, this is great because I don't think that even though we've known each other for quite some time now, I don't think we've ever talked about character creation or how to create a character or how we go about creating characters. I do things a little unconventional. I actually figure out my backstory first. That is the very first thing that I write up. And then I tailor everything around the backstory. So I tailor what class he's gonna play. Like if it's gonna be a monk or if it or whatever. Like even Ebo, I was like, okay, this guy lives in the mountains. I was okay, maybe a monastery in the mountains. Okay, so I think I know where I'm going with it. His monastery his home got attacked. It was destroyed. He has no family. Maybe he's on kind of a revenge seeking thing. So I was like, okay, I'll do a monk that is kind of like a shadow monk in a way, but like without having to multi-class into rogue or anything like that. So I still have those kind of like assassin perks. It was just like I tailored it all around my backstory. My backstory was the first thing that I had going for me. And I just kind of do that with all my characters now, and then race is the very last thing that I pick because though there are some races that are, I'm not going to say like it's just like real life, no race is better than the other. They all have their specialities, but you could really play any type of race you want and still make it work and still make it fun.
Okay.
But if you're looking to like be one of those guys that has to max out everything all the fucking time, min maxes, and they're just like, well, if I'm gonna play a monk, then I really should play a fucking high elf because they get +2 to dexterity and all. It's like, calm out now. Like, be a fucking Goliath monk. That'd be cool.
Or be a no monk.
Yeah,
get in there.
Like it. Like go be, if you want to be like a really cool fucking character, go be a turtle monk. Pick up some of the expansion books and let's start throwing turtles more into character creation. Sorry, I got a little bit off topic there, but I want to see more turtles.
There's one thing to take away. He wants a party of at least 4 turtles, named after Renaissance
Oh
Italian
my
artists.
god! If you made him a turtle monk, Patty says he'd be a ninja turtle.
That's it. Yep.
All right, I think it's a good topic of conversation to end on that point.
It was a fun podcast.
No, I think it's funny. I want to kind of hijack on what you're talking about, that you go background first, and to me it's one of those. A background is really important when you come up with a character. And like and Keanu's stating he works from the class down. He comes up with a class. Okay, how am I going to play it? And he looks at stats as being the least important because how the character is played. You can figure that out with the stats. You don't have to have min-max your stats to still be effective and things like that. But he still focuses on what he's going to play first and then works down. Versus you working on just the story and then working down, which I think is always also sounds like insanity to me. Like it's like, all right, I had this entire fleshed out background. All right, and then he was at this monastery. Both his parents are alive. And then he lived in a city, and he didn't join a thieves guild, but for fun he stole. Okay, that's my rogue. Like, and, and to work from the backstory, or like or to come up with parents are dead. Life is miserable. They're getting shit on. He's getting shit on. He's just nihilistic, lawful good paladin. Let's go. Like,
I thought you were gonna say warlock.
Here's the thing about the backstory that I like is, I like having that mostly flushed out like backstory. Like you guys could get all the basics out of the way, and you could even throw a pretty decent amount of detail in it. But I'm also not one of those guys that enjoys writing an entire fucking book about his backstory, because I want the DM to have some type of inspiration of where's he going to take my character, how does my character belong.
Let me cut you off there, because you're getting a little ahead of where we're going to go.
Oh, okay.
I really think these questions really lead into each other, and I'm really happy that I didn't. I might fuck up the intros and talking to people or you guys in general, but damn it, did I lead these questions along well.
All right.
Let me just suck my dick for a second.
Yeah.
Right? Anyways, so I will get into this, and you guys are going to love it, because I don't pick anything. It literally depends on if I roll really, like, I might want to play a monk, or I might want to play a warlock, or I might want to play a sorcerer. And as I said, when I started, I wanted to play a spellcaster of sorts, and then as it went on, I picked, what does our party need? I like to sit back and let people pick their classes, and then I pick last, so I can kind of cater and play around to the party. So just had to get that one out. It was a good one.
By the way, this drink is awful. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Is it awful?
Yeah, but I'm still gonna finish it because I ain't no bitch.
Attaboy. But it sometimes sucks to cater to the party, but it's also kind of fun because sometimes I'll be sitting at work and I'll think of a cool background and I'll write that down, and then I'll make a character with that background and attach it later. So technically the background came first. Or we play in a game, like I'm like, oh, what do we need? Like it's getting brought up a lot. Fucking dick on my shit. It's getting brought up a lot tonight. But Browntown, that one shot we did where I made a barbarian with burns all over his skin, and he was wrapped up, and gave him a mystery, and and he raged whenever he saw a dragon or fire or anything like that. That was all afterwards. That was all background after the class, because I went, oh, we need a tank. I'll play a barbarian. I haven't got to play one of those in 5e after I found out what the party needed. Fuck. If I roll good enough stats, though, I will completely shift to a character that is completely dependent on stats. I am a horrible individual for this question because it really doesn't matter to me. I'll do anything first. But I will say this. I will always think that the class is the most important part of your creation, because everything is going to stem down from that, because it doesn't make sense to have your background be an urchin and you're a rogue, but you grew up with parents in a small town away from everything and lived a fine life, but you're an urchin now. Because your background is essentially, part of your backstory, and if your backstory is going to lead into your background, and a lot of some backgrounds just don't mesh with classes well. If you're an atheistic, fighter, and your background is an acolyte, and yeah, you can still make case and arguments. D&D, it's a role playing game. You can do what the fuck you want, but I think background is probably the most important thing. Backstory is the most important thing. Dependent and going down on the list. But I do agree with Keanu. I think stats are the least important. I think you can make it when people don't roll amazing stats, you can still have a great time with the character, a la your Tiefling Warlock there, Dale. You still have a lot of fun with the character, and it makes things a little bit more interesting when you just don't.
I think that was probably. I think that was probably one of the most fun characters I had, because he was just so fucking stupid, but he could talk his way out of fucking anything.
Yep.
And I think stats are something that a lot of people get hung up on, because in their minds, like, a lot of them come from like video game land, and
Yep.
you want to have the best stats, you want to min max and all that stuff, but when you come to Dungeons and Dragons, it's not something that's required, and that can actually almost hinder you in some
And
ways.
we brought it up a couple times now, but just for anybody who might not know what min maxing is, maybe we want to talk about that a little bit, and just what min maxing is.
So min maxing is essentially when you try to maximize your character's like stats to be the absolute best, like before, basically, like in lieu of like coming up with like a cool backstory and all this stuff. It's basically like, it's kind of like, in my eyes, it kind of sucks the soul out of Dungeons and Dragons, because you care so much about like the technical like gameplay versus like the creativity and kind of like goofiness of everything. It's where basically, if you're playing if you're playing like a warlock, for instance, and you just pour all your points into like charisma and fucking constitution, and you're choosing spells that do the absolute most amount of damage, but then none of them like kind of like, they're not cohesive together, and I don't know, it's just, in my eyes, it just takes it too seriously. Like it's too try hard.
Well, this is perfect because that answers my next question. Min maxing, yes or no?
Fuck no.
Dale.
No, I think it is important to leave all your stat rolls up to chance. Like, there's nothing wrong to say, I'm playing a rogue, and I really need my dexterity to be a little bit high just to support my group. So, you know what? I'm going to choose an elf because that gives me +2 to dexterity, or I'm going to choose a human variant because that gives me +1 to all my stats. But I think that you need to leave it up to chance more often than not. There's no reason that when you're rolling stats that you should be fudging rolls just to try to get, better stats and stuff like that. Like, you roll what you roll and just place the stats how you want, And if you want that, you want your rogue to be very dexterous, then do it. Or dexterous, sorry.
There he is.
Dexterous, then fucking do it. Like, if you get a decent roll, put it in dexterity. Nobody's gonna tell you about that. But if somebody sees your character sheet and you got 20s across the board, which for people who don't know and have never played Dungeons and Dragons, 20 is the highest that you could get. Then, like, what's the fucking point? Like, you're not gonna have an interesting character. You're just gonna be, it takes the fun out of. Dungeons and Dragons is about suffering like, for me, a lot of it is suffering the consequences of your fucking actions. And if you have a character that can succeed on everything, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so I hate it. So that was just a very long way of saying no min-maxing. I hate it.
And I want to say here, we're not shitting on people who min-max. You can do whatever you want. If you want to completely maximize every single stat to into oblivion, that's fine. But I guess what we're saying is, from our perspective, it sucks. I don't like it.
I just don't think you're, first of all, you might have fun for a little bit, but if you're going on a 2-3 year campaign, you want to be able to have fun with the people around you as well. And a lot of the time, if you do that kind of stuff, the people around you are not going to have fun.
I think like part of the, like, when we're playing in our main campaign, some of the most funny moments are when, like, for instance, when Nate's character tries to do these performance checks because he's a bard, and then he just absolutely shits the bed. Yeah, and then my cleric, who has like almost no bonuses to charisma, will just knock out these performative dances and interpretive dances. Sorry, and
You're fine.
And steal the show. You know what I mean? Like, that sort of stuff is funny because my character is not supposed to be able to do that. And his character is supposed to be good about, doing all these like performances. He's basically a musician. Like, that's his whole character.
And and to add on to that, it's also not critical moments. Right. And this is something side story, but it also ironically brought the group a little closer together. Those funny moments.
Oh yeah.
I think another like aspect of min-maxing, you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Okay, fair enough. I retract my previous statement.
I take it back. Please,
Okay.
I want to hear it.
No, I think that another aspect of min-maxing is people who fudge their roles. I think that they are so focused on min-maxing. You have this perfect character. You can't see this character fail at any cost. So there's a lot of people who will fudge their roles because of it.
Yeah, if you're like, oh, I got an 18 and a 17 and another 18 and a, you're like,
well, natural 20. That's
Bro.
my sixth one tonight. Like,
yeah, like you're sus as fuck. What?
Well, I wouldn't call fudging rolls min-maxing. Fudging rolls is just being an asshole. You don't
Yeah,
have
but
to
I
be a
think
min-maxer
it-
to do it.
I know you don't have to be, but I think that, and I'm not trying to talk shit on min-maxers, but hey, fuck you guys.
Got him, coach.
I'm kidding. But like, I think that at least in my experience, a lot of the people who had that mind, that state of mind of I can't let my character fail, are the ones that are usually min-maxers, and they're usually the ones who are fudging rolls.
Okay. And I'm going to add my 2 cents on this. And as I found, this is not going to be a popular opinion. I actually do agree with yes, min-maxing is acceptable in certain situations. When the entire group goes, we're going to run a min-max campaign as a team, 100%, and do it. Here's the thing, and this is how I look at min-maxing. For some people, combat and doing the most damage and laying the pipe is the most fun they have with D&D. They don't like the RP as much. To them, that combat, I have played with the person. They're not a bad person. He's not a bad guy. But
Yeah, fuck you, John.
no,
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
John
I'm kidding.
John is a horrible guy. All right, let's be honest.
He's fucking awful.
I mean, I
Just
wish
the
there was somebody
worst.
out here there who looked exactly like him that would play D&D with us. Like if he had a brother named Greg by chance.
Yeah.
But so, you know, and here's the thing, and this is what always bugged me with the heaviest of min-maxing. So we talk about these stat rolls, right? And dumping your stats in the perfect spots, making your stats as wonderful as possible for exactly what you need to do. Like, you know, having super high charisma for your sorcerer, and doing that is not a bad thing, and nobody's trying to say that part, but it's when that's your sole focus of dumping all of making your character top tier charisma, top tier constitution, top tier intelligence, top tier strength. I can do literally everything as a sorcerer. I can just lay the pipe. I have 20 AC because reasons, things like that, and that's when it gets a little overboard. There's nothing saying, and nobody wants to dunk on anybody for wanting to make their character, you know, if you're playing a sorcerer, you want to feel like when your fireball hits, it's doing something. You want to feel, that you can cast those spells and things like that. But there are people out there who, when they min-max, we're talking, they build a paladin. That paladin then multi-classes into a sorcerer. Paladins have a feature, and I'll bring it back, I promise. Paladins have a feature called Smite. It's one of the biggest things that they do. They have very few limited amount of spell slots. However, when you multiclass and say sorcerers, who have the most amount of spell slots as a base character without having anything additional or any adjustments, say a storm sorcerer, then you can keep doing smites more and more. And then you also get to add extra damage on it because you're a storm sorcerer, because it counts as a spell-based attack. And the rabbit hole that it goes down into, that is a disastrous min-max character. When we're level 3 and this person is putting out damage that a level 15 would do, we're talking 70 plus points of damage in one turn. And the reason why I don't like min-maxing unless it's agreed upon as a group ahead of time is because combat was the most miserable experience for my character. Because I made a swashbuckler rogue who was a duelist. They did one-on-one fights. They excelled at it. They were also charismatic and did things. The min-maxer literally destroyed every fight. Nobody really got to do anything else. We just kind of existed there to pat him on the back. And then they would intimidate, or they would brush through all RP to just go straight back into combat. Now, when it boils down to it, that to them is how they're having fun. But to the other 3 of us, it fucking sucked. It was just not fun. It took all the fun out of the session, and being cognizant. And min-maxing, like I said, I do agree with it. I think it's fine to min-max, but honestly, you got to work on it as a group ahead of time. Because for some people, it's just not fun. When you
I can
steal
see
the
that.
show in all combat, when you brush through the RP that they're supposed to excel at, And min-maxers, I'm not saying that all of them are like this, but a lot of them don't like the role-playing aspect. They want to go straight into combat. And that's something that other people enjoy. I like RP. I like combat well enough. It's fun at times, but I really, really like RP. But say Keanu really likes combat, and I just keep blowing through combats, talking us out of combats, and never doing combat because I just roll these min-max stats of talking my way out of every situation. It's detracting from his fun. And that's something you always want to be cognizant of. It's a group game. You want everybody to have a good time. You don't want to show up and the DM prepares a very hard boss who gets 3-shot because your min-max character just wrecked it because your DM didn't know you min-maxed going into it.
Yeah.
So it's min-maxing is a tenuous subject because it is the red versus blue type deal. The Halo characters of two camps. Fuck min-maxing. Min-maxing is wonderful. There's no in between 9 times out of 10. But I wanted to bring an in between perspective.
Like as a DM, the perspective of a DM, that's the reason that before each like campaign or one shot, I make people send me their character sheets because I want to take a look at what they're doing. So that way, if I have a min-maxer on I'll know. Okay, well then I'm gonna have to up the difficulty quite a bit. Stuff like that.
Yeah, and one thing I want to just say is that I'm not trying to when I say I don't necessarily like min-maxing, there's a difference between taking your primary and secondary stats and making those your highest rolls of the ones that you got, and then choosing every single advantage to bring your character to do the highest rolls and checks possible. So if you're just dumping, you're like I said, you're a warlock and you're dumping your highest stat in charisma, that's fine because that's what I would do. But I'm not gonna choose races based on, what's gonna give me the highest stats and what's gonna, I'm not choosing feats that specifically as a warlock. My most recent character Bulby, he has grappling. That doesn't make sense. If you were a min-maxer, that would literally make no sense for you to choose that feat, which is why I chose it. I was like, this would be funny. This is so stupid. And
you heard it here first. He did it for the lulz.
But it came in handy. It's come in handy a couple of times. So I don't know. It's just funny. It's funny to me when it works out that way.
All right. Any last attacks on min-max?
Nope. I think I got my point very, very clearly that I'm one that is very much against it personally.
Yep.
But I'll play if I have to.
Yeah, this is a free-form discussion of us just talking about D&D and talking about different aspects of character creation. Min-maxing is an aspect of character creation.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
not a popular one though. All right, so now we're gonna change gears a little bit. We're just gonna shift a little bit. We're just gonna do a little shift. You guys mind if I do a little shift? A little shifty shift?
Sure. Bring it on.
Just fucking
sit and spin.
Just slam on that fucking clutch, boy, and pop me in a higher gear.
I got an 18-wheeler about to run me over. I don't know what the fuck that was supposed to mean. Yeah. Anyways, backstory. And I'm gonna kick this one off because I know where Dale wants to go with it. I know where Keanu. I might have an idea where Keanu wants to go with it a little bit, but fuck you. I'm leading it. Hashtag in charge. How in depth should you go with your backstory? When we talk about backstory, we're talking about your character. We're talking about you make a paladin who grew up in the church, who had great parents, and then one day they were killed, and that's what drove him to his call to adventure. Your backstory, your nuts and bolts, why your character is what they are, and why they're doing what they're doing, why they're out and about in the world, or arena, or prison, or shipwreck if you're playing Baldur's Gate 3, Divinity Original Sin, or any Elder Scrolls game. So me personally, I love backstory. It is one of my favorite aspects of character building, and it's one of the best things a DM can get. As a DM, I love a good backstory. As a player, I love a good backstory. I love thinking about it. I love making the character. I love bringing that thing to life. But sometimes people forget that 9 times out of 10, your DM is not a professional. They're typically a friend, maybe somebody you met online. Hell, even before COVID, a convention. Not everybody has time to sit through your 17 pages of backstory that you wrote ahead of time. And I'm on your side. I get it. It's exciting. It's awesome. It is incredible. It is a really cool concept. People have lives, though. You have to understand. And if I have to make an appendix for your backstory, it's a little too long. I think there should be a small. I like a one-page backstory. I think that's perfect. I'm not saying you need to know every aspect of the character's life, but where they grow up, how was their life? Did they have parents? Did they grow up in the street? They grew up in a monastery. Did they grow up on the moon? Did they fucking get hit by a truck in Japan and now they're in a fucking isekai episode or whatever the hell it's called? Like, you gotta, you want to know like what your character came from and their motivation, especially if you're DMing and getting those backstories, at least in my opinion. But you can't incorporate everything, and sometimes players tend to forget that going forward with their DM, and sometimes players and DMs forget that it's also okay for your excited character to give you a lot. Like, and you don't have to go fuck you, trim it down. You can 1 to 3 pages is the most I want, but I'll also still I'm just gonna mark a few things. But if you give me 22 pages and you get mad, I don't remember that your character's birthday was on a certain date on the 3rd month of the year, you can't expect that of a DM. I don't think it should ever be expected of a DM. But I think getting a decent, fleshed out backstory is important. But also understanding that not everything contextually is important in your backstory, and you really should keep it to the nuts and bolts of the character. And you can flesh in with the DM, be like, hey, I have some notes on the side. I'll keep it so if I ever want to bring something up, I can bring it up to you then. I think that's a decent run with backstories as far as that goes. Dale.
I personally, I like it when people don't even give me a full page. This is coming from a DM aspect, obviously.
Mhm.
I don't like it when people give me a full page. I like getting it down to the nitty gritty. Tell me how your character grew up. And that's about it. Like tell me what brought you to where you are today, and then allow me to just like have complete creative. I that's the type of DM I am. I like to take an overarching story, and then have all these characters have their own side quests that all lead up into the overarching. But if somebody hands me 1 to 3 pages and they give me all the details, it makes it so hard for me to write them into the campaign and make sense, or at least write side quests for them. Because if I do one thing wrong, or if I say one thing wrong, then a lot of the time they'll be like, well, that wasn't right. That's not what I had in mind for my character. And it's like, I don't know what to say. So let me have, like, you have full credit of creativity for your character, yes. But let me have, as the DM, the storytelling credit. Let me tell you how your character is going to proceed up into, because you're telling me how your character got to this point in time, and now you're like handing the reins over and saying, you tell me what happens next. And that's what I fucking love. And I think that's what makes a backstory perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I can really respect that. What I would say when it comes to me and writing backstories, I kind of take a similar approach to Dale, I guess, but it really just depends on the DM that I'm playing with. Coming back to D&D after, like a 7-year break, when I first made Quill's backstory, I wasn't in like the groove of things. So I think I sent you like a paragraph, or maybe like a couple sentences.
It was about 3 sentences.
Yeah,
just shy of a paragraph.
But it was just because I was still trying to like find my footing and stuff, And with Bulby, for instance, I didn't even write anything down. I just told Dale, like, bro, just make it a mystery. But he doesn't even know what's going on. Like, and Dale was like, that's perfect.
Yep.
But there are other times where, I've written like, 3 or 4 paragraphs because it was like, I wanted that character to have a little bit of substance. But I feel like, I can completely understand, how people get wrapped up in writing these super long, crazy backstories. Now that I'm in the swing of Dungeons and Dragons again, I could probably write a, 1 or 2 page long fucking backstory for a character. But, I know most DMs, they want to have a little bit of freedom with working with your character. So I try not to get like that invested until I start playing them. And then like a lot of like of subsequent events and stuff kind of build the personality of that character. And that's at least how I like to approach it. So I usually will write up like a paragraph or two and then just kind of leave it up to the DM to kind of like figure out how they want to integrate that character into their story.
That's actually really funny because I was sitting here telling you that I only like give me like 3 or 4 paragraphs, or even a single paragraph that gives me the basic things of how you got to the point you are. But when I gave Nick Ebo's backstory, it was like a page and a half of just stupid shit. So
well, like I think everybody makes a character they're really excited to play, and they really like you get something a little bit more fleshed out, like because when I made my wizard, like the backstory was he's a wizard, he's an elf. Fuck yeah, like that was
Yeah.
the main backstory. When I made my second major character, because we took a break for a year, got to high school, joined marching band. Holy shit, marching band nerds played D&D. Who would have thought? And we picked back up again, and we started, and I made a cleric, a little bit more fleshed out. But then I settled on my third character, and that's the character I played all the way through high school, up until I left home around 19. I went out, started traveling, doing stuff. I had like 3 pages on that guy. It was Talilan Aerosong. He is my favorite character I've ever created. He's still my number one. I took it, I rode that motherfucker for 5.5 years, took him from level 1 all the way to level 23. Our DM was awesome. He made a great fleshed out story for him. But I did give him I was like, here you go, and here's his backstory, and here's what happened to his mom. But like, I also went, I don't know what happened to his dad. You know what? You figure it out. Like, that was not saying like, yeah, like it's your job, but like, you know what? Like, play with the story a little bit, make some aspects of it that I don't know, stuff like that, because I don't, your characters also won't know everything. And it's one thing I want to circle back on as I talk about as we talk about all this girth in the character sheet size, and how much you bring to the table. It is perfectly okay to literally make a character and you just go, they exist. That's them. If you don't have a fleshed out backstory, that's also not a big issue. And that's, I don't want to make it sound like you should be fucking prepping your character ahead of time. We need at least 2 pages, 1 page to make sure the character doesn't suck. Like, now, like, as a DM, there's always somebody there's 1 or 2 people that are super pumped. They're like, here's my character background. Boom, here you go. Here's backstory. Here's the background. Here's what they do. Here's their motivation. Badass. I love it. One person goes, I made this person. Here you go. They'll be playing. I don't really care. If you want to tie him into the story, tie him in. That's also badass. It's awesome. It's great. So I don't feel pressured like you have to come up with some intricate backstory to the character. And it's something I love to talk about because I'm wholly invested in backstories, and I think it's such a fun aspect. But again, it's not a requirement, and that's the best part about D&D. It's freeform. You can do what the fuck you want with it.
And I would add that if you're a little nervous or anxious, I guess, about like, you're starting a new character and, you're playing maybe with a DM that you haven't played before, the best thing that you could do is just ask, like, hey, how much backstory do you want me to give you for this guy? And they'll let you know, like, and I think that honestly kind of helps break a little bit of the tension when it comes to like coming up with it on your own.
I agree.
And I want to add one last attack on backstories. And this is just something, this is not really so much an opinion, but more of a veteran's notice for especially new players. Be a little mindful of your backstory when you write it. And what I mean by that is, if you're making a level 1 character, you probably haven't slain any dragons. You're lucky if you've slain 1 giant rat at a point. It's always funny that a lot of people go into D&D and they're really excited, and I understand that, and they're like, yeah, my guy has fought in these wars and killed a dragon and was a part of this and that, and then they kind of forget, like, you're level 1, your character you're probably gonna die. Like, yeah. It's a good chance, like, your guy's gonna get a shit rocked out of him by a dude drunk at the bar with his fists. Like, that can happen. We had one guy who had a character last all of about 14 minutes in D&D. And like, that's just, so when I say be mindful, just kind of know, maybe look at the MM a little bit, maybe understand that if you're a level 1 character, you are a fresh-faced adventurer who kind of just got started.
Yeah, actually, that's an interesting point because we're once we're done with our main campaign, the one that's been going on for so long that we just talked so much about, we're going to be starting another very long campaign, and we're taking a different aspect, a different road.
So
and like
excited.
we're gonna get to the point where like the way we're gonna start this, and I'll just kind of quickly explain it because it's gonna be more exciting once we get into it. Is we're gonna start this campaign by everybody just being straight chuds. Like they're gonna be peasants, they're gonna be town folk, they're gonna have nothing special, and it's up to me to decide what their class is and what happens to them in order to lead up to them becoming this person that they are, or that they're going to be, that they're supposed to be. And it's like we've never. I personally have never done that, and Nick brought it to my attention. Like he's like, I've always wanted to do this, but I just don't want to run it because it's a nightmare.
I want to be
got
on the
this.
receiving end of it. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't even that was the nightmare aspect. And I want to say that this is not some original idea. The person who got me into Dungeons and Dragons is my stepdad, Mark, and I love that dude to death. But he used to tell me about his D&D adventures. He played back when it was just Dungeons and Dragons, and they were excited when Advanced Dungeons and Dragons came out after 5 or 6 years of them playing. And that was a big thing. And it was something that he talked about. I thought was a really cool aspect. Their group, because D&D is so fluid and freeform, they start out as what's called level 0 commoners. You'll hear that term commoners or anything like that. So, and I don't want to rush too much into it, but you have your stats, right? Strength, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, intelligence, and charisma. Your baseline is 10. 10 is considered average. Anything above 10 is above average or exceptional or amazing. Anything below 10 is considered below average or horrendous. If you have a character with a -1 or a like 6 strength, they probably are missing an arm or something like that. It kind of gives you an aspect of the character, or they're just extremely weak. They're going to roll negative stats. So when you roll an 18, you're going to take 2 away from it, or however many. But when you start as a commoner, you're just zeros. Nothing for you, nothing against you. So it's always an interesting concept to start. And I know you didn't want to go too much into it. And I'll cut it off here shortly. But it's something really, really interesting. I'm really excited to be a part of it. But yeah, so that is one of those things. And then and this is
I'm very excited. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish.
I'm just very excited about it. I think it's gonna bring a fresh new it's gonna take something that we love and we're just so passionate about, which is Dungeons and Dragons. And it's gonna give us a whole new aspect of Dungeons and Dragons, and who knows how fucking long just that intro is gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
How long are you guys gonna be commoners for? It's like because it's not only going to be me to decide what you guys become, but it's also in a way going to be you, because your choices are going to lead to what you become.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is going to be it's going to be really fun, because it's just the chaos of, and I didn't even finish the part. Let me finish that. So basically, Mark and them, their party would all start out as commoners and do what we're doing. They would, and their DM would pick their classes. And then if you survived, you made it through, your character then was, they kind of like they talked and they were able to convince a wizard to take them under their as an apprentice. 8 years later, then they roll their stats and they make the character and they actually flesh it out. Now they're a level 1. They learned the basics and now they're pressing forward in the class. And that's something we're going to do. So, and it's the example I gave to like Dale, but let's just say like you get killed and you don't want, your character doesn't want to die. And then, you see nothing but darkness, and you ask, but then you hear a voice say, "I can save you." Oops, we got a warlock now.
Yeah,
because your patron brought you back. Things like that, and it's going to be random, chaotic, but something that
or
sounds
a paladin,
really
depending on who the patron is. Or
dude, there's no reason. There's no you seeing darkness and somebody being like, "Hey, kid, I can bring you back. I'm lawful good. Don't worry about it. All right, come on. I don't need your soul enough."
Hey, This is the best part of Dungeons and Dragons is who's the fucking DM.
Who's the?
I'll tell you if it's a fucking paladin or not. You're gonna come back as a fucking monk. That's it.
Oh God!
You're gonna see darkness and come back as a monk.
Oh, my worst nightmare. What do you plan to do? I don't know. Punch a lot. All right, nailed it. Welcome to level 20.
You're gonna You're gonna see darkness, and then you're gonna come back as another commoner.
Oh fuck.
That would,
You're just gonna have to
that would
continue
literally be
doing
the
farm work.
worst.
Actually, you know what I thought was worse is you see darkness and you come back and then you're a baby, and when everybody else is level 1, you have to be a commoner again and earn your class.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be miserable. Okay, anyways, we'll try to get back on track. But that's down the pipe after we finish the current main campaign, which is coming back September 15th. So fucking excited. I've been doing prep ahead of time. I got a shitload of stuff already prepped, so it's gonna be super awesome.
I imagine that when we come back on the 15th, it's gonna be a longer than average, like just episode or session, I should say.
Most likely. I'm not. Why lie? Like I want to pretend like it won't be, but it will be. I might have to take the day off the next day. Might have to be sick. So.
Hey, me too.
We're responsible adults.
Sorry, I can't get into work. I was playing Dungeons and Dragons all night.
Bro, honestly, my boss probably be like, "Fucking typical."
Yeah. What are you? You played it band, didn't you?
Bro, I did, and now I'm feeling attacked. All right. How did you know? Was it the everything about me that gave me away?
Yeah.
And then I wanted to, as a last note on backstory, it's something we've talked about a lot, but with the character, backstory is a big thing, can be a huge aspect of the character. Don't be afraid to talk to your DM. We talked on it, so I don't want to beat the dead horse too much, but your DM, and this is something that will probably always get brought up week to week, is your DM is your lifeline to the story and to the game. I would always recommend talking to them about any big changes, anything you're hesitant about, you're explaining rules, any specifics that they're going to have, things like that, and letting the DM have a hand on the pulse of the party, of what you guys are doing, where your characters come from, backstories, classes, everything in between. It only helps your DM and helps the game as a whole move smoother and better. So always talk with your DM if you can. If it's something you think they need to know or something that you want to figure out, don't ever be afraid to ask your DM. And if you can't ask your DM, get a new one, because fuck that guy. They're clearly not working for you.
Yeah. I mean, if you have something that you walk up and say, I've been really thinking about doing this, but I just don't know if this will like line up in your world or in your story. Like, just ask, Yep. And I'm sure we can make it work, or we can figure something out, or we'll just flat up say, that's really doesn't line up with your actual backstory, like what you're trying to write. So maybe save that for a different character.
Yeah, we can't make it work now, but maybe later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what's next, Daddy?
I'm not Daddy. I'm Mommy. We've talked.
I was just gonna say, after this question, we should probably just take a little break because we're almost an hour in already. So.
All right. So
I'm gonna continue drinking this horrible drink.
So okay, I guess that's my cue to keep talking. As he grips it, it's so bad. It's so bad he's gripping it with two hands. My favorite part. It's like he's afraid if one hand he's just gonna drop it and shame himself.
Mine was scrumptious, dude. Mine's all gone.
That's why you want to fucking stop. You want to get a refill. Actually, you know what? Why don't we take a $5? Let's do this. Let's just do it now.
No. Keep going. I want to finish my drink before we go. Ask one more question.
All right.
I'm gonna sip on this.
So we've talked a lot about backstory, but now I want to backtrack into backgrounds. Your background is a developmental thing in 5th edition that you pick and you get certain boons, maybe an extra language, maybe certain aspects, knowing certain members of a mercenary faction, if you're a soldier by chance, things in that vein. And I just want to ask, and this is a pretty short and sweet one, what do you guys, is there a background you guys like the most, or is there something you tend to pick a lot?
Yep. I'll start on this one.
Go ahead.
The background I choose the most is Haunted One. I don't know why I love it so much, but there's something in that background that basically states that your character, like the common folk of the cities that you enter, will attempt to help you in any way they can based on the pain they can see in your eyes. And
edgelord.
they said it's like it says that it can be out of pity or out of fear, and I love that. I don't know what it is, but I always choose, like, if I have the option to, if it goes with my character, I will almost always choose haunted. Chud was haunted one, Bulby's haunted one. Like, I don't know what it is, but unless I'm playing like a spellcaster, sometimes I'll go acolyte, but most of the time it's just straight up haunted.
Dale.
More often than not, I go criminal contact, believe it or not. And I have an actual decent reason as to why I do that. And that is because it's a cheat code for fucking Dungeons and Dragons. And I'll say this because basically, without like actually reading the full description, it's basically anywhere you go, you have you know where the shady underbelly of the city is. You know where there are people who can find certain other people for you or answer questions for you and stuff like that. So it's like if the DM is throwing something and we don't know how to progress the story, I can just say, "Hey DM, let me pull you off to the side. Does anybody here look like with my criminal contact background? It says that I would know exactly who to talk to in any city I go to. Where's that person?" And I can ask questions. You know, it's a cheat code for Dungeons and Dragons, and I fucking love it. It helps progress story, but it also like just makes you feel like you're, even if you don't have a whole lot to offer the party in a certain aspect, because like for Ebo, for example, he's not great with people. Like I have to play this character because his charisma is so low that I have to play a character that's like I can't talk to people. So but there is one person I can for sure talk to, you know, so I can feel a little bit helpful in those types of situations.
That's a really logical way to use that. And I also, as you're explaining, I was like, "You son of a bitch! You cheat coded my fucking game."
I did. But don't you notice that it's not every city that we go to that I use it. It's only those ones where I'm like, "Oh man, I have no idea what we're gonna do."
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I did like that. It worked well for the story for what we were doing, and it contextually made a lot of sense. So, like, you know, I was not mad about it. But now that I know your fucking dirty little trick, I'm not gonna stop it. You know, like, you know, there are DMs who get actually, believe it or not, just sidebar for a second. I'll answer my question. I read something on the D&D subreddit. There was a guy talking about how he made it's a certain subclassed bard, and basically the DM, because he was so good at speaking, made the roles for him, specifically him only, higher. And it made me so mad. Like, I was like,
that's fucked up.
Such a shit. Like, here's the thing. There's a key difference when it's like Nate. When Nate walks up and he tries to make a prostitution ring while casting spells that fail, of course the DC is going to be higher because he has disadvantages from the spell kept failing and things like that. Or like you walk up to a king. Let's not use Nate as an example. He's a terrible bard. I hope he's listening. He's not. I love him. I just like to give him shit. But let's say, you know, there's a difference between your eloquent bard walking up to a noble on the street and able to, you know, deceive him into thinking you're noble as well because you're well dressed and getting your way in there. That makes sense, and there should be nothing detracting you, you know, from nothing detracting or making the roll higher just because. Now you walk up to the king and you say, "This is my fucking kingdom now," and you roll like, "Oh, I rolled a 45." There's no world where the dude's like, "Oh fuck, you're so charming. Here you go. Here's the crown. Here's everything." There's a lot of like, sorry, and like a DC like that would be near impossible because that's impossible. You know, near impossible. It's impossible unless you had divine intervention. Nobody's just going to willingly give up an entire kingdom just because you talk real good at them.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of times I find, I'm not going to say a lot of times, but there are times that I decide as a DM, like, this role does not make sense for what is going on in this part of the story. And so there's times that I'll just let people roll, but I don't even set a DC. I'm just like, you know, because the misconception of, especially among new people, is I just rolled a natural 20. That means I have to succeed. The natural 20 does not mean you actually, like, you automatically succeed. And that's a common misconception. So like there's times where I won't even set a DC because I know that this is an impossible task, but I'm going to make you feel stupid for fucking rolling it.
Yep, I do the same thing, but sometimes with the nat 20, depending on the situation, I'll let it. It's one of those. It's if you've ever seen Community, it's Chang sitting there in the sombreros going, "I'll allow it." Just like fuck it, let's see where this goes. Like so there's a key difference, and like Dale said, I will not, and I do the same thing. I'll just be like, okay, go ahead and roll. In my head, going, you're never. There's nothing. The DC is 4 billion. Good luck.
Yeah.
But let's. I'll pull us back. And I'll close out our background discussion. The background the background I use the most, the background I think is one of the best. I actually really, and this is one I just started using. I really enjoyed Soldier. It has a lot of good benefits to it, and especially depending on your campaign, you kind of it's like say like you're doing a Baldur's Gate kind of Swords of the Coast campaign. Being a soldier of the Flaming Fist, a mercenary, you kind of have a contact in every city, and kind of goes back to criminal contact, list. But you also have no rank structure, and this is per the background. And rank structure. You also have a skill that you learned that now is so. Like my character Wrath, I picked one that wasn't great, but I'm great at cooking. But he learned that as a student of war. And you can pick different little skill sets that adds into the character. And I actually was shocked at how enjoyable being a soldier was, and also makes your fighter or whatever character a little better background. Like if you don't come up with a backstory, it kind of helps a DM too, or helps you because you go, okay, well they were a soldier, so I'll play them kind of like a soldier. What I think a soldier would be, what they worked as, or maybe they didn't like being a soldier. That's why they're not one anymore. They're going to be a complete drunk asshole because that's how I want it to be. So I think.
Right.
Especially for newer players, it's a really great baseline background. It's in the PHB. It's pretty easy to pick up, and it gives you a lot of nice little boons right out of the gates, and contacts and situations in a lot of big cities or even at military camps.
Huh.
So, and on that note, let's take a break.
Guys, we'll be right back.
So we've touched on backstory, background. And this is something we talked about a little bit this week, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. But classes, and we talked about what we think people's, as a refresher, we talked about what we thought people's easiest class, what we thought was the easiest class to dive into. But when you're creating characters, is there a class you kind of find yourself climbing back towards every now and again, or even quite often? And do you personally have a favorite class, like a class that you just unabashedly love? And a class, what's your favorite class, and what's your least favorite? What's the class you fucking hate? And you can even go as far as class and the subclass if you hate something very specific in a class's set. Gail, why don't you kick us off?
Oh,
never mind.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I was just there was silence, and I wanted to take advantage of it. But go ahead, Dale.
Well, I know we kind of talked about this last week, and like my love for Warlocks, and I'll always love Warlocks, is because I'm I love, like, that's the best part about Dungeons and Dragons is RP, blah blah blah. We went over this. To be honest, I can't think of a single class that I hate, and that's because every class is very. I mean, maybe Gunslinger, like that's not really a
canon. All right, fuck them anyways. Wait, are they canon now?
They are canon now.
Oh, fuck my ass.
Same with blood hunters or whatever they're fucking called.
Witch hunters?
No. I think that it's an actual like blood hunter. I think it's called, or blood demon, or no, not demon, blood hunter.
Well, not really, but
or like I can't say I really can't say that I hate any classes. Like,
well, instead of like classes that you hate, what about the class that you like the least?
Yeah, what class do you just don't really want to play? It just doesn't interest you. It is not a vibe. It's not, you don't like to buy what they sell. It does not get your dick hard.
I'm gonna catch some shit for this, but Druid, I have zero interest in.
Ooh, that is actually shit. This is shit. This is why I wanted to bring this up, because I knew this is what was gonna happen, because we didn't go into this part.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind druids. I think that they're like, I love all the classes. I don't think that there's a single bad fucking class. But the class that I'm least interested in playing myself is druid. I just have zero interest in wild shape. I just have zero interest in big like I don't. If I want to be a tank, I'll choose barbarian or whatever. But like, I just have zero interest in it.
Keanu, do you have a retort to anything he said, or do you just want to move into what you want to say?
I mean, no, his opinion's valid. It's fine. It's wrong, but
There it is.
I'm just joking.
There it is.
I'm just joking. No, honestly, I can see where you're coming from with that. I actually, when I play Druid, I don't wild shape at all ever. I hate it. I play a very tactful, just CC buff Healy Druid. I don't like to shapeshift shit. I would say at this point, my favorite class to play, I think I said it last week, but I'll say it again, is Cleric. Just because they're so versatile. It's for me, it's easy to kind of RP them. You have a lot of access to a lot of spells. You can still do melee, and you have like turn undead, destroy undead, stuff like that in your channel divinities as well. So there's a lot of versatility that comes with the Cleric, and I really, really, really like that. My least favorite class is Fighter. They're so vanilla. Like
They're only even. I'm sorry. I gotta wait.
I just like
finish.
Unless you pick a specific subclass, fighters are just like, let me do some damage. That's all I could do. Hee hee. I'm like, fuck off.
I'm. Are you done?
Sure.
Because I have some heavy opinions on your. Okay. First off,
tell why he's wrong.
First off, look, it's D&D is a versatile game, but you're wrong. And here's my fucking 72-point thesis on why you're wrong. That's right. I'm going straight Martin Luther on your ass. Okay. So my opinion on this is fighters are only as vanilla because you made them vanilla. You could make a better archer as a fighter than a ranger by picking out a fighter that specializes in archery, that then takes a champion perk, and then is a subclass samurai who could literally fire off 4 shots with advantage out of 7 total shots.
Wow, that's really cool for a mid-maxer.
Yeah, that's one. I was getting ready to say the same thing. That's some of the min-max you would say, and also 2.
That's just not min-maxing, motherfucker.
When I say that they're vanilla, when I say they're vanilla, I mean in regards to RP. Like, there's not like you have to do a lot more of the heavy lifting with role playing.
I don't find that very true because, like Wrath's a fighter. Do you think he's very?
Oh yeah. What
don't
are you
ask me that about your character.
Because you don't have the balls to admit it.
I just think like Rat's whole backstory, like not backstory, but like his whole personality.
You don't know any of his backstory.
Right. But his whole personality is he just runs on nothing but emotion. Like.
So you're saying that he's not vanilla and he's somewhat unique.
He's like a Neapolitan.
To be fair, he does fuck Neapolitan type creatures. That's kind of his jam.
I just mean, like, for me, this is just my opinion. I think that fighters are, like, just too, I don't know. They're, like, too bread and butter for me.
Too bread and butter.
Yeah.
Look, okay, here's what I like to equate, because the thing is, it's not just you. A lot of people really don't like fighters. It's a very common opinion in the D&D world. And I equate... I don't know if you're going to like this or not, but I'm going with it anyways. I equate fighters to missionary. Everybody shits on missionary, but you know what? It does exactly what you needed to do. It is a staple in everybody's diet, and everybody still needs to use it every now and again, okay? So it is the fighters are the missionary of the D&D world. Change my mind.
That's going to be a tweet.
Thanks.
I'm actually going to tweet that out right now while you give your answer.
Everybody dunks on it, but like I said, fighters are also a very easy pickup class. And you can make them unique. You can make them vanilla. They could fire a bow with their toes, and they specialize in archery, and they're still a fucking fighter. You know what I mean? Like I would argue past editions fighters were much more vanilla, but the current ones, especially 5th edition, you have a lot more versatility with them. You can really make it your own thing. You can specialize in archery, you can specialize in great weapon fighting, you specialize in sword and shield fighting, you can be a champion, you can be a battle master, you can just you can be an Eldritch Knight, have the spell casting behind it. There's so much with a fighter that you can do and be, and your backstory can be anything, because anybody from any walk of life can pick up a blade and become a fighter, which I think adds to their uniqueness. This is not you specifically, but it is a really common thing in the D&D, like in the D&D verse, that everybody kind of just dunks on fighters. And and this is my unpopular opinion, but my favorite class to play, the class I seem to pick a lot, is Rogue. I really love playing Rogues.
Yeah, me too.
Rogues have such a heavy versatility when it comes in a uniqueness. The only thing I don't like about them is they're almost a necessity in Dungeons and Dragons. You don't really have any other character that can pick locks or really is great at doing that task. See, Buddhist Beast is backing me up. Fighter can now specialize in fighting things with different fighting techniques. Like I said, and this is again not you, but I would recommend looking into fighters a little bit more and seeing all the things that you can do with them now. Especially, and I will say, and I agree that with the regular PHB, they were not super versatile. It was like, okay, I can be an Eldritch Knight, I can be a battle master, or I can be a shitty champion because it's a garbage subclass.
Well, since we're on this subject, my favorite type of ice cream is vanilla ice cream with vanilla sprinkles on it and a little bit of like vanilla like sauce or something.
Why are you the way you are?
Like a vanilla syrup is dope.
But I will say, I'm gonna jump back to the rogue part. I love playing a rogue because you can make a charismatic rogue, like my swashbuckler rogue. I made that guy have an alter ego as a noble, and he has great on deception. He can do great skill checks. He can use magic items. He can lockpick. He can disarm traps. I really love how unique rogues can be, and you can really flesh out their backstory because they're a really unique character. You can make them the cat burglar type. You can make them an arcane trickster, or they're kind of an illusionist mixed with the subtlety and striking of a rogue. An assassin, always edgy but fun to play. So I really love rogues, and now this is where it might get a little heated. My least favorite of all are warlocks. I think they are dug into the dirt a bit. I know.
I think it's really funny that just pointing this out before you continue is that we all are like least favorite classes are some of the other people in our group's favorite class.
I know. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Keanu loves Druid. I'm not a fan. You love Fighter. He's not a fan.
Yeah.
I love Warlock. You're not a fan.
We are exactly what a rock paper scissors is made of. All right. But like my whole thing with Warlocks is they just don't have a sustainability past like 8th level. And like we said, RP is great, but at a point, like if you're part of a smaller group and a Warlock just isn't putting out any help, it's like, okay, I cast my 3 spells. I'm super situational, and I made one mistake this time. Doesn't mean anything. It's not anything on me. It's just a design of the class. So I just think it can hold back a party.
Yeah, to be fair, most Warlocks after they hit about level 10 or 11, they'll start like multi-classing into sorcerer or paladin or something that just gives them a little bit more to kind of keep up with the rest of the party.
But then to me, that's a failure. If you can't take a character class from 1 to 20 and you have to force it to stay useful, not to itself, but to be useful to the party, I think it's a failure in design of the class. I think that really, a lot of people get into Warlocks because of the flavor of them, because of like, I sold my soul to a great old one, or I, am a patron to this fae who I was tricked into service because I owed them a favor. Things like that are really interesting, and Warlocks are, and I will say this, chef's kiss, the best RP type characters baseline ever. I would say the next up is probably Clerics, because your god can have an active effect in the things you do, especially at like level 10 and level 20. Your deity reaches their grubby little hands into the world at level 20 and it goes, all right, time to shift the balance of the existence. So, And Warlocks are and especially to new players, they look at them, they go, "Oh, this is really fucking cool. Like I can sell my soul. I can have all these different aspects. I can have a better attack power and really kind of make this character unique." But in the long run, that character, unless they multi-class or figure some or get really lucky outside of RP, and even then, they're not the talker. They can be, but what if your party has a bard? Guess what? You're not even the best at the charisma checks anymore. As the time goes on, your bard is going to beat you out 9 times out of 10 with jack of all trades.
I think that you make some valid points, but I also think that Dungeons and Dragons Wizard of the Coast, they know this. They see that plea, and I think that I watched a video saying that they were actively within the next upcoming few books, they're actively working on changing the full dynamic of Warlocks so that it is more effective.
I mean, but it's when you balance this out and make things, you shouldn't have to do giant leaps like this years after an edition was released. I would say Rangers and Warlocks are their biggest failures, but that's a talk for another day.
It's also an opinion, so which is fine.
But if they had to change both classes, it's not I have stats.
I mean, regardless. I'm just glad that they're going to be doing something about it.
Yeah, and I hope they just make them better in the long run, so people can really run their Warlocks how they want. And if you want to multi-class with them, hell yeah, do it. But I just think it sucks for somebody who makes a character and then the long term, like it's like, I'm kind of useless now, and you don't want to leave the character behind, but you kind of run out of options. All right. So, let's see. And the last stuff I want to, unless anybody has any attacks on classes or anything like that, I want to talk about today.
My buddy says, "Is it because a ranger has to be ranged?" Well, that's the best part. Is a ranger does not have to be ranged.
They do not. Yeah.
No, they can dual wield melee weapons. They can
have a beast that help fight for them.
Yeah, when you think like a ranger in my head, think of it more like a scout. Or think of like Aragorn.
Aragorn
Is a ranger. Yeah. Aragorn is a Dunedain ranger in Lord of the Rings, and that's essentially where they got all of their inspiration for the ranger classes. Yeah, he can shoot a bow. Yeah, he can pull out 2 swords and fuck somebody up. Like
he's literally in Fellowship of the Ring, he's literally called Strider the Ranger.
Yeah.
Strider the Dunedain Ranger. Yep. Like, and it's like, and like the thing that doesn't get talked about enough in the movie, it was in the extended edition, but when he, like, his horse saves him when he falls off the cliff in Two Towers, he does an animal handling check to get the horse to like get him and take him the rest of the way. I know that's kind of stretching, but he does talk to the horse and things. He does that throughout the films. He like in Elvish will do things with animals and kind of mostly horses, but that is an aspect of a ranger is animal handling.
But so what my plan is for future podcasts, I don't want to dive too much into each individual classes.
Yeah.
Because my plan is for like several episodes to go one by one and just like break down the fucking class. Like, so one day we'll one podcast or one episode we'll do barbarian, and it'll be a barbarian episode, and we'll just talk about barbarians, subclasses, multi-classing barbarians, all this stuff. What makes barbarians great?
Can we? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. But that is actually something, and I'll talk about at the end of the podcast, or probably off the podcast. Anyways. All right. The last thing I want to talk about, and this is the last part of character creation that's always so big, stats. Stats. Your strength, your dexterity, your constitution, your intelligence, your wisdom, your charisma. I know we don't want to delve too much into these.
No, let's delve.
Well, I don't want to delve too much into them because I figure at a point we'll probably talk a little bit more about them. But there is something I did want to throw out there, and something I was kind of curious. Do you guys have a go-to dump stat? Is there something you kind of always just throw just every single time?
I've got 2.
Keanu, kick it.
So when I'm doing stats for my character, I always go in this order. Okay, no matter what I'm playing, it goes primary stat, Constitution, then Dexterity. And that's just the way it is, because your primary stat is going to be, whatever you like. If you're a spellcaster, it's going to be your spell save DC or your bonus or whatever. Then you dump points in Constitution to get extra hit points, and dump points into Dexterity to get better AC. Blam.
Boom shakalaka.
Yep. Sometimes I'll do main stat, then Dexterity, then Constitution, just because the higher AC to me is more important than having more hit points. But it also kind of just depends on what kind of class I'm playing.
I think it also depends on the class. I always go primary stat first and foremost, and then I go dexterity 100% of the time. I'll always go primary stat, then dexterity, and then it's usually constitution. But if it's like, no, I take that back. It's usually constitution. So it's primary stat, dexterity, constitution. That's 100% of the time.
Okay, but like you don't like your dump stat. Like, is it like?
Oh, like the one that I just
like what's the one you typically go? All right, done. Like if like 9 times out of 10, even if the character kind of needs it, you're still like, who gives a shit? Like, throw.
I think I showed you that my dump stat with Thynos was intelligence at that point.
Yeah.
Unless I'm playing wizard, it's intelligence.
Yeah, I was going to say, unless the class demands intelligence, it's either intelligence or strength, depending on if it's a spellcaster versus a melee. So my melee characters always have really shit intelligence, and then my spellcasters, if they're if it's not, obviously if it's a wizard, no, but usually like the strength is just dog shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually rely on the rest of the party to do the whole strength aspect of things, because there's usually 9 times out of 10 there's usually a barbarian in there or a fighter. Yeah, so they'll take care of the strength checks and stuff for us.
That's why they're the missionary of D&D. Fuck
yep.
You.
Hey, I just said they were vanilla, not that it was bad.
I know. I'm kidding. But no, it's I actually love the fact that you guys agree on this, because here I come with the alternative opinion. Apparently my opinion's gonna fucking catch in a car. I do agree with the Buddhist down there who's saying charisma. Charisma is actually typically my go-to dump stat unless it's a class dependent. I've been told I'm somewhat charismatic in real life. I talk a lot, and I have a tendency to go overboard. But in D&D, I like to pull back, and it's almost a way to force myself to pull back, because the character's not charismatic, so I need to pull back a little bit. It's like almost like my own little governor switch. Like, hey, this character has shit charisma. Don't get yourself into this just because, and like it's something that helps me a little bit, especially when I want to. When we were growing up and playing D&D, I was kind of the voice of the party, and I do have a tendency to do that, but I don't want to do that every time. When I want other people, when they create their characters, if they have a talky bard, I don't want to be the fucking -2 barbarian who's like, out of the way, I got this, and just and step on their fun. So I use it almost as like a governor and like pull back. But typically for me, it's charisma or wisdom. Those are typically the 2 dump stats. Unless it's a prime stat for something like like a druid or a cleric, I'm like, and even then with them, I'm dumping charisma, and hell, sometimes I'll just dump wisdom because fuck wisdom.
I can honestly say that it's been a real challenge playing Ebo for the past year and a half or year or whatever it's been.
Year for you, 2 years for the others.
Yeah. So it's been a real challenge because I'm fairly charismatic. I'm fairly open. I'm fairly can figure things out. I can fly by the seat of my pants, and I can we could just go with this. But with Ebo, I actually have to take a step back because he is so bad with people. Like it's like -1 or -2 charisma, and it's just like that is so bad. I can't be the voice of anything. I can barely talk to the party at this point. So it's been a real tough. But it's been fun. It's been fun being that, because like John, our ranger, also has terrible charisma. So if you get me and him into an RP session together, and we both like RPing our characters correctly, and it's just a one-on-one time. It's the most awkward conversations in the world, and I fucking love it. Like the time I drew his girlfriend, a picture of his girlfriend that I've never met or seen before, and it's like a stick figure.
This.
And then how awkward is it? I was just like, so well, here you go, bye.
Oh shit!
You're like the kid in third grade who didn't make friends in first, and like just trying to figure it out. Here you go, bye. It just says yes or no. Circle one on the bottom. Question mark.
Yeah. Do you want to be friends with me? Check yes. Check no. And then I have to hand it to Quill to hand to John, so that
Fuck. That was actually one of my favorite moments with you guys. I love when you guys do the RPs like that, especially with how comfortable the group's gotten over 2 years. But again, I don't want to dive too much into it. But yeah, I mean,
September 15th, baby.
Yep.
And to pull it through, do you guys have any last things on character creation? Any aspects of it? Anything we've talked about or haven't talked about you'd like to bring up?
Yes, this is a major one though.
Go ahead.
So this is gonna be a fucking discussion.
Okay.
Because it has a lot to do with not so much character creation, but characters in general. And since we're slowly gonna get off the topic of characters and more into the world building and stuff like that, and classes and all this stuff, I want to talk about permadeath in D&D.
Oh shit. Yeah, sorry. That wasn't I was shitting you. I threw a bone at the wall. Sorry.
Yeah. I want to talk
no context, just move on.
I want to talk permadeath.
Yeah. Oh hell yeah.
What is I know personally everybody's opinion on permadeath. But I want to hear it from you guys, and I want everybody else to hear it. Permadeath in D&D. If your character dies, they're permanently dead. It doesn't matter if it's a new campaign, you can't bring that character back. Why do we do it? And why just mainly why do we do it?
Keanu, you want to go or do you need a minute?
I can go. Unless you have something prepared, go ahead.
I always have a little bit prepared on everything with this shit. So, and here's my thing with permadeath. I think resurrection and true resurrections should be an aspect. I don't think they should be readily available. In my worlds, I make it difficult. I accidentally got tricked by these fuckers to giving them a diamond so they could do it. Our Keanu plays the cleric in our campaign, and he knows resurrection. So, in D&D, I think making a character and playing the game is incredible. It's a great time, but I also think there needs to be a risk and reward. You are playing something that can die, a creature that might pass. You're telling a story. It's supposed to be, heroes and everything else in between. And there's supposed to be some heartbreak along the way. There's no story that hasn't ended in some sort of heartbreak or another. Even Disney films, Bambi's mom got shot in like the first 20 minutes. Hunchback of Notre Dame still had the hunchback at the end. That never got resolved. Things like that are kind of important. But I think having actual moments of death really adds weight to the story. I never look, and I want to specify this, I never look to kill somebody's characters as a DM. DMs that say, like, my job is to kill the party, and I did say that for a long time, but that's really not true. Your job is to challenge the party. You want to make the encounters difficult, but you should never go into it and be like, all right, I'm going to kill them with this fucking encounter. I'm going to murder them into the ground dead. There should always be some sort of option. A worker, you should never put them in a winless situation and then go, you guys didn't have fun? You should always have the option to run away, to fight, to escape into a portal into the next dimension, to hit their knees and pray to their patron to pull them and the party out, and it happens. I mean, again, this is my opinion. You don't actually have to do any of it, but I think a winless scenario is the worst situation for any type of storytelling. But that being said, sometimes you have to do that to progress the story. However, the weight of death after heavy situations and challenging situations has such a bearing and really hits the party. It hits your players, you know. And people don't want to lose their characters. Some do. Some are absolute psychopaths who are like, I rolled a new one, get rid of this guy, and throws themselves in every situation. But one aspect I really liked, and something that I do in our current campaign is when our characters die, they have an option to just stay dead. You know, your resurrection spell does not. It says a willing creature is resurrected. It does not mean that just because you killed this person or your friend died, that they come back automatically. They have the choice, and this actually happened with Dale's character Ebo. The rest of the party doesn't know, but Keanu is finding out now. You're welcome.
I knew.
Okay.
We talked about it a little bit without like too much meta. I didn't really tell him what happened though.
Gotcha. But yeah, so it was when he died, the party wanted to bring him back, but Ebo had to make the choice himself whether he wanted to stay where he was. And for context of the current campaign we're running, I don't want to say where, or to go back. And he ended up rolling a d20, and if it was above 10, he was gonna come back, and if it was below, he was gonna just stay dead. And now the party has this reflection of like, oh shit, like death is real. Like we might not come back from this. There's no guarantees and no promises.
I also had to bring it down to a dice roll because I have to, when I'm playing a character, this is me personally, I have to set aside what me as the player wants and think about what the character would want in that, so I had to leave it up to chance. What would Ebo do, or what would this person do if he saw his entire family or whatever in the afterlife and he was finally happy, but he also knows that his friends need him.
That's what happened. So there you go, Keanu.
We're not going into detail about it.
Yeah, no, I know, but that's exactly what happened though. So it's fine. Like it's fine. Like Keanu can know. Like, but and to give the weight to the situation. The reward is that much sweeter.
Yeah, just because Keanu knows doesn't mean that Will won't find out through RP. So.
Oh yeah. I'm not worried about that. You guys, we're all somewhat veteran D&D players here.
Okay, but here's an aspect that I'm going to go even further, and I'm going to say not just permadeath in a campaign,
in real life.
I'm talking permadeath even further. Of why don't we bring those that I have this character sheet made up for this character, but he died like 7 years ago in a different campaign. Why don't I bring him to another campaign because I really want to play him again?
Keanu?
I'll go ahead and take this one. I think a lot of that comes down to like when you're playing these characters, like at least for me, I try to get into the mind of that character. And it's hard to they have this history, even if it's 7 years ago, they have this history, and then you're just like, nah, I just want to pretend like none of that happened and start all over. It kind of discounts the character's like past. It sounds weird because this is like a fictitious thing, but like in my mind, that character is dead regardless of what campaign they're in. Like I can remember what happened to them, and so I will always start a fresh character, or import one, like bring one over from a campaign who's still alive. But yeah, I don't know, like just because they die in one campaign doesn't necessarily give them that kind of agency to start a new story in my mind. Because like imagine being like, like a level 7 druid and you got, absolutely ploxed. Just to be like, oh, I'm going to bring this druid back in a new story. Like you can create a character that's like that druid, but to bring back that same druid just kind of almost feels disrespectful to me.
That's what I was going to say. Is I think that for me, it's a respect issue, and that's because I respect the characters that I play, and I don't want to discredit what I've created in this character, because in a sense, this character is me, and it's like if I disrespect my character, I'm disrespecting myself, and I'm not giving myself enough credibility as a player, as a role player, as just I'm not giving Dungeons and Dragons enough respect. And so that's why I think that, and I know not a lot of people. I mean, there's a ton of people in the D&D community who think who go by the same, like, permadeath is the way of D&D. But there are some people out there who will argue and say, well, this is my character, this is my world. You know, if I want to bring him 100 years into the future and just say that he's the same character but new or improved, you know, they can do that, which is like that's your prerogative. I get that.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, and that's the thing. It really is. It's personal preference, but you know, your DM is the final say so. And the thing is, it also gives you, I don't know, it's the reward is always that much sweeter with when the risk is beat, or when you fight the risk, or you know, a heavier risk is there. So it's like one of those. It's one of those things where, you know, like my current character in the micro campaign we're playing with you, Dale Raff. He's never died, but he's hopped from campaign to campaign, and the reason I keep him doing that is because, you know, these campaigns fall apart, and I love the character, and I get to bring him back around. But if he were to die, he dies, you know, and that's one of those things. I actually have been extremely lucky. I've never actually had a character like die. I have not had a permanent death character. As far as like I just haven't, not yet. Like I've never had like a long campaign character, I should say, who died on me. I've had a character at like level 1 die, but you know, you're not really that invested in the character. It's like, oh well, that sucked. Oh well, you know. But I've never, like I said, I have a level 23. That was the longest campaign I played, and you know, through high school and into college a little bit, and then I was the forever DM after that. So
My buddy Duke asked, just while we're on the subject of Wrath a little bit, a couple questions. He says, but does he, like, what about if, like, does he remember his past campaigns that he's been on?
Okay, I think I saw him drop that earlier, and I think he's talking about characters in permadeath or characters.
Yeah, but it's a good one to bring up, since you're bringing up, you've played Wrath before.
Yeah, well, with Wrath, he hasn't died, but to him, like I equate him as he's almost like a planeswalker via Magic the Gathering. He kind of just has been hopping from adventure to adventure, and kind of doing his thing. And my character, his personality hasn't. I'll answer the second while I'm on Wrath right now. His personality hasn't changed at all from campaign to campaign. He's kept the same. He's still, but also it works perfectly for his backstory, which I don't want to get into because it's something I'm keeping tight-lipped that Dale knows about, but I don't want to. It's something I no character has ever found out Wrath's history yet, so it's something I'm keeping that close to the chest, you know. But each new campaign is just like it's a new adventure. It's a new chance for Wrath, and with his backstory, it makes a lot of sense. So, and that's why it's perfect for me to do that with that character, or else I would retire him until I really got another big campaign going and found a viable reason for him to join. And switching gears to just like a character permadeath, like we said, it's really up to the person, their preference, and the DMs. You know, so you could do a modern day campaign where your character's reincarnated and they remember their entire past. You know. From they're in the future in modern era, and they remember their ancestors past fighting elves and shit. You could definitely do that, or just they die and your character dies and remembers everything, and they're resurrected by a lich. It's all up to you and the DM, and it's your personal preference. But like I said, it's one of those, the weight of your character just being gone forever is always it makes that risk reward that much better, and it really makes D&D feel more fun, and it makes all your decisions have more weight. When you can just be flippant, it doesn't. It takes away from the game. To me, that's my opinion, and in that vein.
See, so something that I really appreciate is, as a DM and as the person that's currently DMing this micro campaign that we're on, is typically as a DM, I'll ask my players if they say, "Hey, I'm bringing a character that I've already made," you know, blah blah blah. Well, did this character die? That's how I typically have to ask. I didn't do that with Wrath because I know how you feel about permadeath, and I know that that's a stigma that you have as well. But like, for example, Nate, he literally asked me, "Can I make Thebus even though he's dead?" And I said no. Like, why would you want to bring that? I know he was joking, but at the same time, it's just like this is a great topic to be on because I don't like it. He says, it's like the chaos theory, where if your character dies in one campaign, then that was just one roll of the dice, and the next campaign is the same life if he survived that previous campaign. So yeah, that's pretty much how Wrath is. It's like if Wrath died, he'd be retired, but he could go through several different campaigns because it's the same life he's going through.
Well, I actually disagree with that because I think this is all the way I equate it. This is all part of Wrath's adventure. You know, he's to me, this isn't a chaos theory type thing. This is him going from one adventure to the next. This is him just continuing his
path.
His path, I guess. So for me, it's not really chaos theory. And like I said, this is one of those where it really is like I'll bring up Rick and Morty real quick because chaos theory is quite rampant with anything Dan Harmon touches. So that whole multiverse theory and chaos theory that runs rampant where the whole theme of that is nothing matters because there's an infinite number of realities where an infinite number of this action happens and this character exists, so nothing matters and nothing has any meaning. So it's, to me, that's again another way to cheapen out things. If that's how you like it and you enjoy that aspect of it, again, perfectly okay. I'm not dumping on that. But to me, when you go, okay, well, there's an infinite, it's the same vein of like, oh, well, I can just resurrect the character whenever because permadeath doesn't exist in this campaign. So
right.
it cheapens it. There's no real reaction to any of your actions. There is no punishment that fits any crime. It doesn't matter. And that's what that was the whole aspect and Rick and Morty, especially the episode where they talk about that, is that nothing has any meaning because there's infinite number of realities, infinite number of everything. So, you go through the chaos theory or the multiverse theory, whatever you want to call it. It just means that nothing matters. So at that point, it's going back to the ultimate point of it's cheapening it because there's no true effect because they can just pick up and go in a different reality.
Right.
That's how I view it, anyways.
Oh, that's how I'm the same way.
Agreed.
All right, guys.
Any
last?
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're running the show today.
I hate it. It was nice. It was nice for you to ask one question, so I was like, "Oh, just answer." Any last attack, Keanu? Do you have anything else to add to character creation? Anything you want to add into, tack into, add on top? Do you want to top it, bop it, lock it, pop it?
Here's the only other comment I have for character creation is
play it, Druid. Fuck everybody.
Fuck everyone else. No, honestly though, like with character creation, like it's one of those things that can be kind of daunting, especially for first timers. I mean, I won't lie, there are times I'm even an experienced D&D player, and there's sometimes where I have trouble coming up with a character idea. But bounce ideas off your friends or your DM or the other players. Kind of get an ear for some suggestions. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that you follow, but like look for inspirations and suggestions with just like the people that you're playing with, or look towards some of like the communities like Reddit, or not necessarily, but
Actually, I will add in real quick. The Reddit D&D the Reddit D&D subreddit is actually pretty wholesome. I'll give them that.
Okay.
Like, it is not super toxic like a lot of subreddits. Like the D&D subreddit on there, they actually have giant joking meme wars about the most, like they talk about like things. Like most recently is where are the centaur's nipples has become one of the talking points. It's pretty hysterical. It's pretty wholesome. Nobody really shits on anybody. So just it's my 2 cents on that.
But yeah, I would just don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to bounce ideas off of people and see about their feedback. But more importantly, do what feels right for you. And it might feel weird in the beginning, but there have been characters that I've created that like I didn't necessarily like in the beginning, but I played them, learned to appreciate and respect them, and then they ended up being some of the most fun characters I played. So I don't know.
But it helps if you have it really helps if you have a good group of friends who are kind of in the same like level playing field as you are.
Yep. I also agree with that.
And I want to chime in real quick. This is something I said last week, and this is something I really stand by. It is one of, when I say the easiest character to play is yourself, and from a role play aspect, it's actually very, very true. But don't be afraid to use that, and go like what would you want to be? Like, genuinely, if you want to play yourself, do you want to be the spellcaster? Do you want to be the fighter? Do you want to be the bard? That again, like when I say that, I truly mean it. I mean, I want, if I, in a D&D world, I want to sling spells and be charismatic, and people actually listen, and have a character that kind of gets along with everybody. And that's what my first character, my long-term character, ended up being, was a half-elf sorcerer that I fell in love with. So it's one of those, if you are out of options, again, playing you and your dream class, your dream, whatever you would like to be, always the easiest thing to pick.
Yeah, like me, I once again, like I said it at the beginning, and I'll say it at the end, is I really, really, really hate myself, so I'll just pick whatever's not me.
Shocked you never picked a paladin.
I know. It just that feels blasphemous at this point.
You say that, but that's, if we're being honest, that's the antithesis to you.
That is true. Yeah.
A lawful good. Fucking,
Yeah, that's true.
paladin
That
of
is true.
Paylor. That is talking yin and yang there, bud.
You know what? I might make that my next character.
Fuck. I have regrets if I have to DM it. All right. Well, I think that is it for this week, gentlemen.
So next week it's gonna be me hosting the show. I think I have a topic already decided.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's gonna be perfect because I'm the one that is hosting the show, so it's gonna be really easy for me to come up with questions. This next episode is going to be for all those first timer DMs out there. But I'm gonna go with DM tips and tricks for basically coming together with your first DM experience. How do you put together, not necessarily like the craziest complex world, but how do you get an idea of building your story, building your world, and how you facilitate some of the things with combat. So the next episode is going to be
it's so much fun. So
intro to DM.
This is actually perfect for Dale and I to be the ones getting asked the questions on this one.
Yeah.
That's why I thought it would be perfect. I thought it would be great.
No, it's outstanding, man. I think it's absolutely perfect. I actually have an idea, by the way, of something we can do each episode. I thought this would be fun. I thought it'd kind of add a uniqueness to us, and I also think it'd be a really interesting way to see how we get mad at each other for our opinions.
Okay.
I was thinking we could, week by week, whoever's hosting picks a character from any medium, and we have to figure out what class we think that character is.
Okay.
All right, I'm down.
That's fucking amazing. I like that.
I thought it was fun.
Do you have a character for this week?
So I actually do, but it's kind of it's an easy character, but it's always a fun discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Jack Sparrow.
Oh yeah, easy.
Oh, easy. He's a rogue swashbuckler.
Yeah.
All day, every day.
I mean,
and that's why I brought him up first. But to give you an idea of like what it is, like he can be from anything,
Surprisingly, I'm gonna go a little bit different on this one. I'm gonna say that he multi-classes because I think he's part bard as well. He has at least 1 to 2 levels in bard.
Okay, show your homework. Why do you think that?
I just think that he is so cutting a bit. I guess you were right. If you build the rogue the right way, he could be the charismatic face of the party. Blah blah blah. But I don't think that's how he was. I think he's all showmanship, and that's something that a bard is. That's what a bard is just showmanship. And so yes, he has ways of being that rogue-ish, swashbuckler-ish type person, but he also knows how to talk his way out of situations, and he is. I think that he has that bard aspect to him.
So I respectfully disagree, but here's why. The showmanship, I think, is all part of the deception, which cuts back to Rogue. Anytime he does showmanship is because he's always deceiving someone. He is never showy for any other reason than a persuasion or a deception. It is always a veil to hide his true purpose, which is a very roguelike action. Which is why I don't think he's bard, because his dad canonically is a bard because he was fucking Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones. So his dad is a bard 100%, but him himself, he doesn't do any sonnets, he doesn't sing any songs, he doesn't have any type of dances. The only thing he does is as far as showmanship is basically using it to mask whatever action or honest or dishonest he is doing.
Do you think he's just
bards can do that as well, though? Bards can definitely have that showmanship.
Yes, but their whole aspect of performance is where their magic comes from. He doesn't have anything that backs that. None of that goes into a type of magic or spell or anything. It is always into a skill set, not a spell.
Right. No, I understand that, but I think that there's a bard aspect to him.
See, this is why I'm excited to do this.
Yeah,
and also
exactly.
I thought of the name of it.
I already know who my character is gonna be for next
I'm
week.
Excited. So, by the way, I want you guys to know I named it already. In the name of, I want to see if you guys can guess it. It is something that would appear halfway through an episode every week of one of the most famous animated series of all time that started in the 1990s. Specifically, it started in 1993, the animated series. Or not 93, 96, the animated series.
Is it Who's That Pokemon?
Yes, it's Who's That character. 100%. So that's why I named it Who's That Character. So
Okay.
I thought it'd be cute. I thought it'd be fun to name it something like that.
We're gonna have to make I'm gonna make a
little
a little slideshow or a little slide that'll come across the screen. I think that's a good idea. But keep in mind that next week, hopefully by next week, guys, we are going to have a little jingle or something that for an intro/outro song.
Yep.
That we're going to write and perform. Well, we won't perform it, we'll play it. But it will be written and sung by us. But we will thank you guys.
Oh,
thank you guys. What? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's one more thing we got to do.
Buddy,
we got to roll for the next week's drink.
Oh,
Starting next week as well. And
we also, before that, we also have to figure out Keanu. I need Keanu's what he thinks Captain Jack Sparrow is. He just kind of.
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah, fuck.
Well, I was getting interrupted, but I was gonna say swashbuckler as well. I mean, he's a fucking pirate. I mean, that's basically like I don't know. In my mind, it makes sense. I was gonna say that he's definitely just a rogue swashbuckler with very high charisma.
He's the definition of chaotic neutral swashbuckler rogue with high charisma. I agree. That's
he's literally a pirate, which is a thief, and he does most of his stuff is dueling, so it only makes sense.
I agree.
But
right.
Do you want to roll since you're the host for this week, or should I roll because I'm the host for next week?
I'm rolling, baby. So let's make it from this. The host.
Hey, I don't have the book.
Oh, I do.
Dude, I'm fucking just shaking. I'll wait till you get back.
Got it right
so
here.
What I think is the host of the week will roll at the end, and then we'll tell everybody what the drink is, and then we'll make it for next week.
All right, roll it, bitch.
All right, we have a 76.
Page 76. That's the Coors Light Wounds.
Oh,
no.
I hope not. It has like tomato juice and soy sauce in it. He says, "Can you guys sing a rough draft of the outro today? Is it just 5 seconds of you guys screaming into the mics?"
Actually, it's 5 seconds of me screaming into a pillow in front of a mic.
76. Yeah. Okay, yep. 76 is a drink called Red Manna.
Oh yeah, I was looking at that one.
2 ounces of cinnamon whiskey, 2 ounces of apple whiskey, a bar spoonful of grenadine, 2 ounces of club soda, and a Thai chili or a jalapeno coin.
Oh yeah, that sounds awesome.
Actually sounds fucking delicious.
Here, I'll show you a picture. There's our Red Manna right there.
That actually sounds kind of delicious. I'm kind of excited for this one, boys.
So it's going to be a little cinnamon apple spiciness.
A little spiciness.
A little bit of
All right.
spicy.
Gonna have a little bit of a kick.
Yeah.
Guys, since I'm hosting this episode, I'm going to do this. Keanu, last attacks. Anything? You got anything, buddy?
I think I've said everything I need to say. To be honest.
Dale, you got anything?
No, I just want to say thank you. That was a fun topic.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for sitting through my scuff. And thank you all for joining us on the second inaugural episode of the Dubbys and Dragons podcast.
Hell yeah.
Cheers,
Here.
everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.